Hi, it's April the 23rd, 2018. This is Wes Fryer, and today after school in our Making Media Monday workshop, we talked about classroom podcasting and radio shows. And this is the slideshow that I used, and I thought I'd record a narrated slideshow for folks who are not able to attend and might be interested in this topic. You can access these slides by visiting the shortened web link wfryer.me/podcast, and you can reach out to me with questions or comments at my Twitter ID, which is wfryer. Today we're going to talk briefly about why podcasting is wonderful, and you might want to consider doing this for your students as well as for professional development or just for fun. We're going to talk about complicated versus simple workflows and how this is much easier with apps. And following this short introduction, I did a demo with the app Anchor, which I'll not actually do in this narrated slideshow, but I'll encourage you to take a look at that following the slideshow. There are many reasons why podcasting is absolutely wonderful. And of course, I've got an old school cassette tape player and recorder there, if you can remember what that was like. And I remember having fun with those. But digital recording with audio, and especially being able to put it into a true podcast, which other people can subscribe and be able to get your new episodes, is just wonderful. It's faster than writing. I could have tried to write all of this information that I'm recording here, but it's so much faster to be able to express it verbally and record. And many of your students will find that as well. Students can practice their fluency, whether that's with English or with another language. And that's a wonderful thing to do and to become part of their portfolio. It's great for reflecting on what you've learned. You could be reflecting on a field trip, reflecting on a sports competition, reflecting on a project. Many times we learn more, I think, when we reflect than perhaps we even do from the experience itself. There are fewer time limits with podcasts. This is really key, right? There's so many different time limits that we have in the traditional classroom, and so it's a wonderful thing to have that unbounded. I will say that when you assign and ask students to create audio recordings, it is important to give them limits, because some tools are going to have limits built in, but you can't scan an audio recording the same way that you do a paragraph of text. And so it's a wonderful thing to not have those limits, but on the other hand, when you assign students to do it, you probably want to think about limits, especially depending on how many students you have. You can find your tribe with podcasts. You may already do that as a podcast listener. I love the texture of voices, especially as you bring in different people to your podcast and you have their voices. You can talk with students about expression, using expressive voices. There's just so much fun you can have with audio recording. And hey, that's it. That's the last reason. It's fun. So we need to do this. There are a lot of podcasts that I really love, and these are a few. Actually, this is a couple years old. This is a collection from 2015. I think the number of podcasts I subscribe to is probably near to 100. I don't listen to all of them all the time, but I do use a wonderful app called Pocket Casts, and it works on both iOS as well as Android and synchronizes. I'm also using my Google Home Mini a lot more now, because I can ask Google to play podcasts, and that's awesome to be able to do. And you can also fast forward with your voice or rewind with your voice, certain number of seconds, and skip ads and all that stuff, which is really great. But it's great to be a podcast listener, and there's just so many different ways that you can connect with things that are of interest. So this is a complicated podcasting workflow, and this is not the one I'm going to encourage you to do today. You would record, you would edit, you might normalize your audio, then you export your audio, then you upload it to the web, then you might have to update your RSS software, and then finally you have a link within a website like WordPress. That is complicated. You can do that, and I've been creating podcasts since about 2005, and I still use this workflow for some of them, but today we're talking about this workflow, which is just a two-step workflow. Use an app like Anchor, and then share your podcast, because it'll produce a link. It hosts it for you, and you can immediately share that via email, via your website, via Facebook, Twitter, other social media, via Seesaw if you use Seesaw with students, and that is just so much easier, and you can do basically everything right inside the Anchor app. If you are going to do this in a more complicated format using a laptop or desktop computer, Audacity is a wonderful program. It's free, and it allows you to do all kinds of things. You can fade audio in and out, called audio ducking. You can, multiple tracks. You can do all kinds of things. But again, that's complicated. We're going to use Anchor and recommend that you use Anchor, and that's because it simplifies it so much. You can basically do everything just within the app. Some other apps that are worth mentioning, Opinion used to provide free hosting like Anchor does. It no longer does. However, it is still really easy to edit podcasts that you create with Opinion. This is the app that my wife used for the past 4 years to create her classroom podcasts and is still using. Another app worth mentioning is Voice Record Pro, and this is a fantastic app. Even though it has the word Pro in it, it is free for iOS, and it allows you to actually save your audio as a video in your camera roll, and that is really awesome. Even though with iOS 11, there's now files or you could save to places like Google Drive or Dropbox and things like that. I really have found it to be wonderful for myself creating audio podcasts, and then also students to just be able to have an app like this that they can just record, save things right to the camera roll. Then you can choose how to save that, putting it in Google Drive, sharing it to Seesaw. If you wanted to put it on YouTube, you can even do that. So those are both apps that are worth considering, but those are also not Android-based. Those are iOS, so you'll need an iPhone or an iPad. Another app worth mentioning is the StoryCorps app, especially if you're into digital history and oral history. This is an app that also includes a lot of questions right inside the app. So I've used this with interviews before. My son used it for his Eagle Scout project that he did at a local retirement community where his grandparents were living at the time, and it is free. Also, it's good to mention that Seesaw is a wonderful app. Our teachers are using that in a lot of classes. And this isn't going to make a true podcast that is public and people can subscribe to, using their smartphone or their laptop or other kinds of devices. But students can record up to 5 minutes of audio at a time with the app. However, they've got to record it on top of an image. So they can take a selfie, they can have some other kind of still picture, or they can make a drawing inside Seesaw, and then they can record the audio. You can also drop links to audio podcasts that you either find and you want students to listen to, or that you create yourself as links, and that's important to note as well. So Anchor is a phenomenally great app to use. You can record directly in the app, and you can record different segments, and it's basically no edit podcasting. The app itself, as I'm recording this here in mid-April of 2018, doesn't appear to let you edit a segment, but you can delete a segment, and you can also, have multiple segments. So rather than doing one super long show, you can record the different pieces, and then if you make a mistake, you can go in and edit that. You can add bumpers. They have included audio. You can connect to your Apple Music or Spotify, and then you click publish, and it does everything else. There's all these other steps that, a more complicated workflow involves, and Anchor really simplifies this. So if you're interested in more resources about podcasting and making radio shows, I'd encourage you to visit the website I have been maintaining since 2013, showwithmedia.com, and you can link to the page on Radio Show by just clicking that wonderful radio show icon. Thanks so much, and if you end up listening to this, I would love to hear from you. Again, you can reach out to me on Twitter. I am W. Fryer, or you can Google me, go to wesfryer.com, and I've got a contact form. So good luck, and I hope you create and share some wonderful podcasts and radio shows in the weeks and months to come.